Part 1. The Shiner's Crew. Warm sea air hit the face of Captain Farley as his ship drew near to the strange island in the middle of the treacherous sea it lived in. The crew of Farley's ship, mostly having died, consisted now of a few seafaring young lads from Weatherport. 15 days the crew had sailed, nary a moment passed that hunger, exhaustion, and death weren't close. On the 9th day of the journey toward a promised treasure, the crumbs had been eaten by the rats aboard the vessel. On the 11th day, the last bit of rat was gone. By the end of the 13th day, half the crew had died. 2 harsh days followed that 13th. 2 days of rough water and no food. Clouds blocked the last bit of sun the crew had seen after the first week. Darkness reigned in, a foreboding call that beckoned for the souls of the ship, known as the Shiner. At first, the island was no more than a speck on the horizon. For all the crew knew, it was a fantastical mirage, meant to mock them as they begged hopelessly for their gods or the sea to take them. Captain Farley pulled his spyglass to catch the first glimpse. What he saw would only have been thought and entertained as being a dream. The captain's sour face abruptly melted into disbelief, and the sight became clear before his eyes. A gigantic barrel. What would be easily mistaken as a barrel that was much closer than it was from a distance, being that its dimensions were the exact same. A humongous barrel nestled on its side, buried slightly on one end in the sand, on a remote island in the middle of seemingly nowhere. The barrel in the sea, a sign read, "In and eats." Mass relief fell on the crew as the now emboldened captain read heartily aloud. Confidence built back up on the Shiner as the crew bellowed in all different sounds and voices. "Bring in the sail! Batten down the hatches! Wrangle those who can't do for nothing!" The Shiner hit land for the first time in 15 days. Its crew fanatically praising the land as their feet hit the sand after running down the short dock. The door of the barrel end was now thrown open, releasing wonderful light out into the purple hue of the cloud-covered sky. A smaller boy, Frederick, malnourished and nearing complete disorientation, flung himself off the side of the ship onto the dock. His body lay lifeless for a moment, still clinging on to hope for food and water. Frederick lifted his head to see a tall, thin man with a white beard step out of the doorway with an apron on his front and a rag in his hand. "Come hither, come thither," he began. "A nefarious wind be blowing. Where be ye, captain, lads?" "Aye, sir," said Captain Farley. He felt an overwhelming relaxation take him over. An honest man he saw standing before him, a salty dog, formed by the great foam of the sea itself. "Bring your men before me, captain. I see dried tongues and ribs to boot. How long were ye before the Great Blue? Must be a fortnight at least by the looks of your vessel. Bare she looks, beaten in tow. What have ye on board but dust and dew?" shouted back the tall, thin-bearded man, his white beard now heartily lifting up as he laughed while throwing a hand out in front of him. The rag he had flung bits of crumbs on the ground. The crew rallied before the thin man, begging for his help. "On your feet, lads. Master Bugley, scrape Frederick off the dock. Get him food and water now." Captain Farley then turned to the thin man. "A fortune-filled pleasure it is, sir. Do ye have room here in what looked to be a barrel? Stranger things in these parts, eh? Aye, quite strange. But he who stay on the land and refrain from returning to the wretched nature of the sea stalls in what he may. I lay my head hither for comfort in what may, Captain. Captain who, might I ask? Farley. This once my crew of men, now only the young and green. My new first mate, Bartholomew Bugley. Master Bugley ye be. Take your friend there inside, fill him with bread and pudding. The rest of your crew, Captain Farley, are they strong, strapping lads? Aye, they are, sir. But what is your name, if I be one to ask? Silver-tongued Tom Pennant. Be it just Tom to you, Captain Farley. As for your lads here, I be needing a task or two done around the inn. Could they be fit for work this day? Not today, I'm afraid. Foolish would I be to not let the crew rest for the night. We've been without food for days, and clearing water for even more. Can you task them with which you need be doing in the morn, perhaps? Foolish and harsh I'd be not to let your weary crew rest for the eve. Head inside. The damn birds be pecking at ye out in the sand if you stand here any longer. And so the crew of the Shiner was led into the giant barrel, unsure but uncaring of what was to be discovered in the strange inn. They first were met with the wonderful odor of a cooked meal. "Boys, it's like Christmas!" Bugley shouted with a smile. Frederick was now well fed, gorging himself on a leg of lamb and a delicious-looking chunk of sourdough bread. Wine and ale filled the table, along with an assortment of meats and cheeses. Only the finest here at the barrel, they all thought as they dug into their supper. Captain Farley stood at the end of the table, looking over the crew, making sure each had their fill, and then some. The captain didn't always feel so charitable or caring, but he was grateful for the chance to rest on land and show his appreciation to his crew that evening. Not a care in the world they had that night in the barrel. The crew shambled into bunks in one of the few bedrooms the barrel. Their tired heads hit the pillows, and out like lights were they all, snuggled and finally comfortable, after 2 harsh weeks at sea. Silver-tongued Tom Pennant stood with Captain Farley in another room in front of a fireplace, both puffing at wooden pipes. "Damn good leaf that is, Tom." "I thank you, Captain. Grow it myself, I did. Not a thing to do on this island but keep busy. The wildlife be something quite fierce. But that's what I need be asking of your crew there in the morn." "Chasing rats off your island here, Tom. That'd be a job for beggars and thieves. But honest I be. Payment and work be due for ye be letting my crew rest here in your barrel, as strange as it might be." "Like I said, Captain, strange indeed is that which lives here on this here island. Your crew'll find that to be true in the morn. For now, lay your head on a pillow and rest. Strong your bones will need to be for the tasks I have for thee." Tom now stared into the eyes of Captain Farley, almost as if he was looking into the very soul of the man before him. Lost did the captain feel, and afraid would the crew of the Shiner soon be. This is the end of Part 1 of The Barrel in the Sea. Return soon for Part 2, The Living Island.